Okay, we are streaming live on YouTube now.
So member recall is before or after the Pledge of Allegiance?
Roll call will be after the Pledge of Allegiance. So you'll call the
After the
order.
pledge.
Yes, after. Call the
Okay.
order and then do a roll call. Brent, you don't have your cat with you?
Yeah, let's not go there. I believe it's going to be gone by the time I get home tonight.
I've got 9 o'clock whenever you're ready, Jim.
All set?
Yep.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have a member roll call.
Mr. Wines.
Deerfield Township Hall,
Mr. Vogel.
Bill
Mount
Vogel.
Pleasant, Michigan.
I'm present. I'm in Rosebush, Michigan.
Mr. Duffett
Present in Clare, Michigan.
and Mr. Riley.
Present in Shepherd, Michigan.
All right, the meeting will be recorded and live streamed to YouTube, where the public will have the opportunity to view the meeting live and access it in the future. All votes will be of a roll call nature. The public meeting attendees will be able to listen by telephone call in and participate in public comments by following the directions in the public notice of this meeting. Those are the announcements. The first order of business would be to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved, Tom Riley.
Second,
Motion
Bill Vogel.
by,
Tom Riley?
supported by,
I believe Phil supported that.
Yes.
okay, roll call vote.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Duffett,
Yes.
Mr. Vogel,
Yes.
Mr. Wines.
Yes.
4 yes, motion carries.
Minutes of the last regular meeting of our zoning board of appeals on October 21, 2020. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, I'll ask for a motion and support.
So moved, Tom Riley.
I'll support. Brent Duffett.
Roll call vote.
Mr. Vogel,
Yes.
Mr. Duffett,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Wines.
Yes.
4 yes, motion carries.
At this moment, we'll have a public comment period for non-agenda items. If you wish to address the board on non-agenda items, press number 9 on your telephone keypad.
Mr. Chairman, there are no other public in attendance on the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Thank you, Ray. Okay. Then the first order of business is variance number 20-06, Brad Fussman, Nottawa Township. Ray?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is in, as you said, Nottawa Township, Section 30, 5608 Lakeshore Drive. It's on Coldwater Lake. The applicant is requesting a variance for a side yard setback, 2 side yard setbacks, 1 on each side, 6 feet and 5 feet, where 10 feet is required, and then 17 feet in the rear yard where 35 feet is required. This is a back lot on Coldwater Lake. The home is on the waterfront side. Just a little bit of a brief background. In 2018, the Zoning Board of Appeals heard an application from Mr. Fussman to expand the footprint of this building. This is his garage. Ultimately, that was denied, citing safety of vehicles backing out of the driveway, as well as the expansion being detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood. We've been working with Mr. Fussman since 2018 to try to help guide him in a direction that can help solve a solution or find a solution for him to work within the zoning ordinance. And so he submitted an application on October 5th of this year with a site plan justification and comment on section 1404C of the ordinance, as well as a copy of the deed to the property. What he would like to do is basically just install a new roof on this building. If approved, he would be removing the existing gable trusses and installing gambrel trusses. And if I may just share my screen real quick, I sent this graphic to the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is the definition of building height in the ordinance, just to give you a visual. This is the gable roof that he currently has installed, and he would be installing the gambrel roof on the building if approved. According to Mr. Fussman, the existing gable roof doesn't provide him with adequate storage. And the gambrel truss would allow him to use the entirety of the building in a more efficient manner. By doing this, Mr. Fussman would be, in effect, expanding his storage space without actually expanding the footprint of the building. Because the installation of these types of trusses change the height of the building, the new construction requires to meet all the ordinance requirements, and thus he's requested a variance in order to do that. The side yard and rear yards are not being met in this case. Just a quick note, as the height, even though he's changing the height of the building or proposing to change the height, the height is not subject to a variance request because he's still meeting that ordinance requirement for height. Staff would note that around Coldwater Lake, as well as on Littlefield Lake, the Zoning Board of Appeals has approved several variances such as this in the past. Changing the height of the building, adding a second story, adding a new roof to a building without increasing the footprint of the building. I did an inspection of the property a while back, and after we received the application, I did note that there are 2 additional storage buildings on the property, one in the rear yard and one in the front yard, and I've sent the Zoning Board of Appeal pictures of those. Those are in violation of the zoning ordinance, section 302B. Number 2D, which only allows for a single accessory building on a property. And so this is kind of the nature of the problem that Mr. Fussman has. He's trying to gain more storage. We talked to Mr. Fussman about those buildings. I had a great phone conversation with Mr. Fussman, and in the staff report, you'll see my quote. He stated he would 100% remove those buildings if he were approved. So currently those buildings are storing the items that he would be able to put in the building. And so if approved for this variance, going no closer to the property lines than what is already existing, Mr. Fussman would remove those buildings and the property would no longer be in violation. Staff has provided a condition if the Zoning Board of Appeals is going to make an approval on this request to address the removal of those buildings. And that's later in the staff report. We did give you your zoning ordinance language, section 1404C, as we always do. I've also given you the language from section 302B2, just for your reference from the ordinance. The application is complete, and staff has posted their request in the Morning Sun as per state law and ordinance requirements. As the date of this, as of today, we have not heard any or received any written correspondences for or against this variance request. Just for the record, if an approval is going to be made, the following condition would be recommended by staff. The applicant shall remove the 2 small accessory buildings in violation of the ordinance on the property within 30 days of receiving a final approval from the building inspector. We've given your sample motion to approve and to deny. If you choose to use those, those are in the staff report, but that is all I have, unless there are questions for staff.
All right, thank you, Ray. I believe the applicant is present, and at this moment, he could make comment to the board regarding his variance request.
Go ahead, Brad. If you wanted to take this opportunity to address the board, you may.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. I think you said everything that we've been trying to do for the last couple of years, and I think this is the only option I have at this point. It wouldn't just be pretty much copying both neighbors to the north and south. They have the same trusses that I have now, so I'm just kind of following what they have. And just to finish up my garage would be great. And like I said, I'm not going any bigger, nothing, just putting trusses on, that's it. And just so I can have some better storage. And I think that's all I have to say. You pretty much said everything I had to say. So.
All right, well, thank you. You may be asked questions by the members of the Zoning Board of Appeals when they conduct their discussion. But right now, we'll move on to, we don't have a public, is that right, Ray?
That's correct. There's no other public in attendance of the meeting.
There isn't any.
There are none. None in the
So I
waiting
don't have
room.
to go through that, open and close?
You can open it and then immediately close it, having no public in attendance.
Okay, I'll open the meeting to public comment. I'll close the meeting to public comment. Okay. ZBA discussion. Yeah, ZBA discussion. Members have a chance to visit about this request and ask questions of the applicant if you desire.
Philip Vogel, I only had one question, and Ray, you did cover it with the 30 days upon final inspection. Being he does not live in the dwelling, he wouldn't have to get a permit to occupy it, would he, or not? I mean, he's putting trusses.
Well, he is required to get he is required to get a building permit for the construction, and then once the building inspector will do a couple inspections, and once he gives a final approval on the construction, that's when the 30 days would start.
Okay, very good. Yeah, because other than that, you have no deadline for, he could always leave something undone. Not that he would, but, and then have the other.
Sure, and 30 days is a typical, 30 days is a very typical timeline that we give people to comply with the ordinance. We're always trying to seek that voluntary compliance, but violation aside, the bottom line, he's just looking to replace those trusses.
Very good.
Anyone else?
I think it pretty much meets the criteria of 1404 in my mind. I mean, the extraordinary circumstances would be it's an existing building, so he's got to try to deal with what's there. It is necessary for the enjoyment of his property, so he can store some property inside. You walk around or drove around the neighborhood. I actually did see another pole barn with the gimbrel trusses on it. So I don't think it would be detrimental to the neighborhood or anything. And he didn't create this problem. The garage was there. So I'm okay with it.
And that was a motion?
Well, I didn't know if anybody else had any other discussion. I wasn't making a motion. I was just gabbing.
Okay, well, I'm having trouble hearing with my antique computer, so I'm missing things now and then.
Well, I will make a motion if nobody else has got any other discussions that based on the review of 1404, we approve the variance.
Okay, we have a motion.
Tom Riley.
Supported by Tom.
Just for clarification, does that include the
Correct.
recommended condition?
I'm sorry about that. Let me modify that motion to include those 2 additional storage buildings be removed within 30 days of a final building permit being issued.
And I'll second that, Tom Riley.
Okay.
Seconded by Tom.
Yes.
Roll call vote.
Mr. Vogel,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Duffett,
Yes.
Mr. Wines,
Yes.
4 yes, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fussman may want to get together with Ray after this meeting. That's up to you two, I guess.
Yeah, I'll get in touch with you, Brad, probably later today or tomorrow.
All right, thanks, guys.
You bet.
Okay, moving on to variance 20-07, Sue Kish, Nottawa Township.
Yeah, thank you. Again, we're in Nottawa Township's section 30. Again, this is on Coldwater Lake. In fact, it's actually just around the corner from Mr. Fussman. 5672 Lakeshore Drive. The applicant is requesting a variance for a rear yard setback, 25 feet 6 inches where 35 feet is required. This is a waterfront property here on Coldwater Lake in the LR district. We got the application from Mrs. Kish on October 16th. Also includes a deed to the property, site plan comment on section 1404C of the ordinance. And if I may, let me bring up her site plan real quick. Mrs. Kish is proposing to install a roof over a portion of the existing deck. This is the existing deck here, and they're looking to install a roof over the existing deck. They're going to be 2 feet closer to the waterfront than the existing deck already is. Pardon me. This is an open deck, covered deck. It's not going to be enclosed. In fact, the only other construction are the 2 columns that will be on the ground. And so it's not going to be obstructing the view of any of the neighbors on the lakefront property. Again, this is a very similar request that the Zoning Board of Appeals has approved in the past. Staff would note that all other setbacks for this covered deck are being met. Staff would recommend that if an approval is going to be made, a stipulation be included to prevent additional runoff from the roof to neighboring properties. And that be the applicant shall install eave troughs on the roof so as not to shed water onto neighboring properties. Staff would note that the installation of this existing deck, Mrs. Kish has indicated that it's necessary for the continued enjoyment of their property because they've received quite a bit of water damage over the years. And this new deck would provide protection against additional water damage to the home. We've given you the ordinance language as we always do in section 1404C. And after review of the application, it does appear to be complete. Staff has posted the request in the Morning Sun as per state law and ordinance requirements. We have received one letter in support. It came shortly after the application, and we've sent that to you in your packets. The letter of support for this request is from 5666 Lakeshore Drive, which I believe is the next door neighbor. And again, that's a letter of support included in your packet. Sample motions, again, have been given to you if you choose to use those. And that's really all I have, unless you have questions for me.
Any questions for Ray? Okay. If the applicant wishes to comment or make a presentation to the board, she may do that at this time.
Thank you very much. Just a little history. We've been out at Coldwater Lake, our family, since 1949. So my grandfather was one of the original people who built a cabin out on the lake. And so this has been our family for 3 generations, and we're planning on keeping it for a really long time. what we're trying to do is improve the property. Like Mr. Johnson said, we've received a lot of water damage inside the house. We face the north, and so we get a lot of winds coming in, and it comes through the balcony support right now. And so we're trying to do what we can to make sure that we address those water concerns, and adding a roof line would help as well. This is in line with other property owners. If you take a look down both sides of our property, you'll see examples of people who've done something similar. So we're trying to do something similar to what we have already out there. And like Mr. Johnson said, you have one letter of support. We've actually talked to neighbors on both sides, Ms. George and Mr. and Mrs. Cameron, and they're both in full support of us making this improvement to the property. So I just want to add that I appreciate Mr. Johnson's support through this process. It's new to me. We took over the property from my father a couple of years ago, and I appreciate all the efforts. I'll take any questions if anyone has any questions for me.
Anyone have questions for the applicant? Okay, well, thank you for your time, and you may be asked questions later on. Otherwise, your portion of the meeting is over.
Thank you.
I'll open the meeting to public comment. I will close the meeting to public comment. It's time for board discussion on their variance request. Anyone want to say anything?
I think one of the biggest things when you start crowding the lake like that is we can sometimes negatively affect the neighbor's view of the lake. And with this being an open roof and no one out there looking around, I don't think it's going to negatively impact the neighbors, the view or anything like that.
I would also add, if you don't mind, I did a little analysis in the GIS real quick, brought up the aerial photo around that portion of Coldwater Lake and did some measurements from existing homes and decks to the lake. This is right about the middle of where all of the rest of the houses, as far as their distance to the lake, came up. It was anywhere from 20 feet to the water to 35 feet to the water. So this one would be at 25 and a half feet to the water, would be right about the middle of the road there.
Yeah, this is a very common problem when you get around lakes, the smaller lots. So, yeah.
Fortunately, we can't move the lake.
Well, we can, but.
Anyone else care to make a comment or ask questions?
I do not, Philip Vogel, I do not see where it's a big enough addition where it will be disturbing any of the ground. So I don't see a problem with any of that. Other than the eaves trough would be a great idea to handle any water off the roof.
Anyone else? We ask for a motion.
Everybody's talking at once. I'll make a motion based on review of 1404. We approve the variance subject to eave troughs being installed for the water runoff.
We have a motion. Is there support?
Philip Vogel, second.
Yeah, roll call vote.
Mr. Vogel,
Yes.
Mr. Duffett,
Yes.
Mr. Wines,
Yes.
Mr. Riley.
Yes.
4 yes, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. I guess that takes care of the business of the meeting. Any staff comments at this point?
The only comment staff would have at this point is that from now until December 30th, all staff is working remotely from the building. We are available. If you have questions, comments, you can leave a message for us on our office lines, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Is there anything on the furnace for December?
I've not heard anything as of yet. So I have nothing in the works. but that's not to say that something won't come
Right.
up last minute like it usually does.
Well, we're also busy socially that we need to have warning.
Right, you betcha. Get those calendars cleared.
We're in on all invitations. Any
I got a
board member
quick question.
comments? Board member
just had-
comments.
I just had a quick question. It dawned on me here last week as I got a check from Isabella County for the ZBA meeting. Since we've been meeting remotely, that's the only one I've got. Now, it's not that I need my $30 every month, but it just dawned on me. We've had quite a few of these meetings, but I've only got one check. Is that everybody's like that, or do I need to check into something?
We can take a look. We can take a look into that and see what's been processed and what is waiting to be processed, and we'll get back with you. Either I'll get back with you or Tim can get back.
Well,
with you and let you know what's
it's
going
like I said, I'm not losing any sleep over it, Ray. It was just a question that popped into my mind when I got that check, and then, I know the virus has got everybody all screwed up in their workloads and everything. So don't drop everything to investigate. I would just throwing that out there.
We'll put it on the list. If you do have mileage, just you can let myself or Kim know if you guys do have mileage, and we'll make sure we get that per diem taken care of for you.
Okay.
Anything else? I think I got two checks. I think I just cashed one for 30, and then I had one before for 2 meetings and some mileage, I think. Ray, anything else?
No, staff has nothing else.
Me, Jim.
Pardon me?
I just said they must like you better than me. You got 2 checks.
Well, either that or I can't remember.
That's right.
Brett needs it now to buy cat food.
Yeah. We'll have this discussion after we turn off the meeting.
Understood.
I know where you live. Remember that.
He'll be getting a cat.
Yeah.
I could offer to share my second check, but I won't. Okay, I guess I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Tom Riley.
Support, Brent Duffett.
Roll call vote,
Mr. Wines,
yes.
Mr. Vogel,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Duffett,
Yes.
4 yes, motion carries.
Ray? Question, Ray.
Yeah.
I can hardly hear this meeting, so either I've got a problem or what, but it was okay. I could follow along, but I missed a little bit.
Okay.
And normally I don't have that problem. Volume is really weak over here.
Okay. Is anybody else having any issues with volume or anything? It may be something, Jim, with your iPad. I'm not 100% sure.
My technician says she has the volume at the top,
Okay.
and I can't fire her. I've been married to her for 58 years.
No, don't fire her. You don't want to do
Okay.
that. iPads, I know sometimes the speakers on those are not as good quality, and it can depend on the acoustics in the room and whether or not the sound is coming through.
Yeah.
Some issues there. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, well, I kind of got along okay, but I could use a couple more decibels.
All right. All
All
right.
right.
Take care, everybody. Stay safe.
Yeah.
Thank you.